All righty, looks like we are live and alive. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are here, we are live, we are alive, and we are going to be doing our Thursday chat, debate, and news roundup of some things that I have found across the. One of these things is making noise. I am going to mute for 8 hours. Something's making noise, and it's annoying the shit out of me. Goddamn Discord. All right, we are here. As you can see, pinned at the top, there is a join link to the Discord if you want to join up for a few hours to chat. You're invited to voice chat and debate and discuss these things as you would. But moving forward, we have a couple of things to talk about. Mainly, one, the continued attack on education by MAGA and far right incendiaries and stupidity and their use of, well, essentially spineless administration to help get this along. So we have a couple of articles talking about recently something that come across is again at Texas A&M, which has been a pretty much a mecca for this type of stuff. Again, I think it's Ted Cruz and others are really focusing using Texas as kind of a petri dish slash testing ground for all of their authoritarian clamping down on, uh, well, basically any education that they deem unworthy of study because it threatens or otherwise doesn't comport with their fantasy land bullshit. So, I think Ohio's also struggling with this, and so is Utah. You both fairly conservative areas. And it honestly doesn't matter because, as I've said before, universities have never been a mecca, never really been a liberal or, well, I would say liberal. Let me correct. Have never really been a progressive mecca. And I know you're going to sound really strange. That's going to sound strange as hell. It's not. It's not the progressive mecca you think it is. They never have been, and they probably, regrettably, never will be. Uh, so, so Texas A&M philosophy professor ordered to remove Plato reading or be reassigned. Now, this or be reassigned, yeah, that sounds threatening, and it is fairly threatening. But again, what they were going to do is, as you will see, they were going to offer a different class to teach because if this person did not do the censorship of their reading list, the selection and the removal of questionable readings, according to them, or me paraphrasing their intent, the class would be canceled and they would be given a different class. So, another Texas A&M professor is facing scrutiny from university administration over course curriculum, being instructed to remove readings from his syllabus. Professor Martin Peterson confirmed to KBTX's Rusty Surratt that he was instructed by the philosophy department to remove readings in his contemporary moral issues course related to race and gender, including readings by the Greek philosopher Plato, or be reassigned. So, right off the bat, as a former teacher, again, a class like this, contemporary moral issues, is usually going to be a hotbed for um, administration anxiety because it isn't just looking at nice, safe problems like Nazis back in the 40s and fascism, but only in the 40s. But it's literally looking at contemporary, i.e., problems within the problems of morality and or philosophy and whatnot, specifically the philosophical aim and or the philosophical analysis of our moral issues that we see day to day in contemporary life, i.e., something within the last 20, 30 years or 40 years that has built up. And a lot of these are not settled, hence, they're going to be very iffy. But it also means that, again, you're going to have to look at these things. There's literally no way to teach anything within the last about any kind of moral or ethical or anything, AI, anything at all that's contemporary without running the risk of this because it's not necessarily settled. But what the philosopher has done, quite rightly, is probably he's trying to ground that some of these contemporary moral issues actually can date back even further, that various topics and ideas relating to understanding and or engagement with these particular topics, these philosophical moral issues, these social moral issues, can be traced and otherwise given illumination by older texts, specifically Plato, probably the most cited famous philosopher in the entire Western tradition by a landslide. Just, it's not even close. So, quoting the professor here, I speak for myself, not the university, when I say, in my opinion, Texas A&M is not on the right track. Censorship is not a viable path to academic excellence, said Peterson. And it really isn't. The move follows guidance from the Board of Regents that all faculty obtain approval for courses that discuss race, gender, sex orientation, and or gender identity. Let me open this up real quick. So we have there. Interesting. We have a comment. This is from December 19th. We also have the same professor here. Oh, and look at that. He said he believes that revised policy will bar him from teaching parts of his Philosophy 111 Contemporary Moral Issues course, though he has not received any formal guidance from administrators. Well, that was on December 19th, and here we are in January, and he's like, yeah, he correctly called it that this was going to be a problem. This is going to be a massive problem, these guidance things. And again, this is coming down primarily because of the White House and recent Department of Education has put a massive clampdown and otherwise restriction on any topics and education relating to gender, race, sex that at all touches upon anything that could be supportive of DEI and or alternative forms and understandings of those specific concepts that does not conform with very hard right Christian understandings. This is a this is again theocratic style crackdown. This is religious dogma cracking down and censoring academic freedom at its core. But we'll stick with the original article here. The course syllabus description for this class says students, among other things, will practice respectful and thoughtful engagement on contentious matters such as abortion, euthanasia, capital punishment, and the relationship between ethics and religion, violence and war, animal ethics, sexual morality, gender issues, healthcare, ethics, equality and discrimination, biotechnology and bioengineering, economic injustice, climate ethics, and global hunger and poverty. So this is in many ways this isn't even a gender and studies kind of course. This isn't some radical thing. This is just a massive overview. This is a 100 level course. So it's not a super intensive philosophy course. It's not like a graduate course. It's not even like a major senior course. This is going to be something that is fairly like a survey of contemporary moral issues and some of the ways in which philosophy can enlighten to some degree or otherwise can bring up some interesting questions about these kind of topics. Peterson said the discussion about love and biological sexes from Plato's Symposium is what the administration flagged. Now, it's interesting because, again, this is mostly about love and biological sexes. Yeah, the Symposium, I'm trying to remember the exact text here. I could probably find it. It's a fairly simple one, pretty straightforward. But mostly this is kind of where Plato's talking about various forms of love, if I remember correctly, like platonic love versus like more carnal sexual love. He talks about how and why and what this means when two people are connection in such a way. And based again kind of on It just offers a unique look at how they might have viewed the concept of sex and sexuality in a philosophical sense. Nothing particularly. Again, this Plato Symposium has been taught and discussed for quite literally centuries. So, here we have the course. Philosophy, contemporary moral issues, standard class time there. Kind of a short class, 20 minutes. It's only a 50-minute class. Interesting. Kind of a short class, honestly. I was used to seeing more like hour 15. Well, they do have a Friday recitation. Uh, so there's kind of a lab where you have to recite and or discuss these things, give small presentations. So there's like a lab component. So that's why it's only 50 minutes. Makes sense. So classes that meet up or work 3 times a week typically are shorter, unless they're intensive courses. Okay. So, yeah, all that's pretty bog standard. Core curriculum language, cultural discussion, asterisk below highlight CD course learning outcomes, carats, highlight KLPC learning outcomes. These are like, again, student learning outcomes and or program learning outcomes. So, identify, reconstruct, and critically evaluate arguments about moral value. Interpret different perspectives charitably, recognize practices and virtues conducted to blah blah blah. This is all pretty bog standard of, you will engage, articulate ideas, be able to analyze, identify, and critically reconstruct. You'll be able to write and or describe these things, blah blah blah. Doesn't demonstrate active listening to and respectful dialogue with others on difficult issues. Yep, this is all pretty standard for a course that is going to have some degree of contemporary political uh, issues. The rest of it is just a standard crap. University policies. These are all going to be pretty bog standard. I've seen a few of them, and they're all kind of match up to some degree. There's some leniency or some differences here and there, but for the most part, it's all just like, here's your context, here's your basic FERPA rights, blah blah blah. I don't see the. Maybe it was in the. Ethics versus politics, law, religion, MLK Day, consequentialism, duty ethics, virtue ethics, resilience and Aggie core values, natural rights, death penalty, blah, 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 abortion. Notice how we're only spending about a week on each of these topics. So, again, this isn't some hardcore indoctrination. This is a survey course. We are surveying many different types of things. It looks like they have recitation. Interesting. Yeah, as their exams. Short paper, right? Race and gender ideology. That's just 1 week. It's literally a Monday and Wednesday. That's it. So, Mind Tap due March, chapters. Mind Tap might be some kind of online monitoring thing, like an online like reading quiz kind of bullshit. So you have your chapters here. You have your mind tap. You have to do your mind tap on these chapters here, chapter 14 and chapter 20. Do the 18th. Okay. Right. Okay. I don't see a reading list, but it might have been attached somewhere else. Maybe it was up further here. Maybe I missed it. I don't think I did. Audio visual, no, that's just basic policies, textbooks. Oh, yeah, here we are. Missed it completely. Yeah, Platonic Foundation Translation Symposium. We actually could probably put this somewhere here. Let me see what it actually looks like. So it's 180, 185, 189 to 193, and da 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 da. Cool. All right. So we might look at that later just to kind of get an analysis of this, see what these are. But for the most part, not going to see much. Okay. Yeah, no, standard stuff. Sorry, just reading it real quick. Yeah, nothing too particularly shocking or whatever, unless you're shocked that there are varying gender and or sexual orientation things that the Greeks participated in and or engaged in the thought of. But again, nothing too big there. So, Peterson has been given the until the end of day to comply with orders. Peterson has been with Texas A&M since 2014. The changes come after former English professor Melissa McCool. This was happened earlier in the year, and I talked about it, I think, a little bit of last year. Following a viral video showing a class between a student and Professor McCool over a children's literature course. And again, this children's literature course has this same kind of setup here to where it is, from what I could tell, a general overview of the various topics, ideas, concepts, and things that are dealt with in when studying and analyzing children's literature. You will do a little bit of it, but it's kind of a big survey. Here's the big stuff. We're not even dealing with a course that hyper focuses on one particular form or one or two particular aspects that need to be engaged with or thought of when it comes to the literature that we give to children. Not just from like, oh, whether we should or shouldn't, just like what we have in the past, why not, what are these aspects, blah, 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 and analyzing like we do literature in general. And she, again, had a particular day or week where she looked at race and gender, and the student saw this, was a conservative plant at this point. They're all, most of them are plants, threw a hissy fit while recording it because she had already complained to the, I think, dean, who, the dean or like one of the head administrators, who was kind of a semi friend and or just somebody who she knew she could fucking use to bring down on this poor teacher. The backlash from the video and McCool's removal resulted in former Texas A&M University. Excuse me, jam it. McCool's removal resulted in former Texas A&M University president Mark Welch stepping down from his role. Free speech organization FIRE said in a statement on Wednesday, the First Amendment prohibits public universities from deciding which viewpoints can be taught in a classroom and which must be banned. Texas A&M now believes that Plato doesn't belong. Sorry, I need a little bit of water here. I just sneezed and I'll be back in just a second. And we're back. Apologies. All right. So, got to clean myself up here a little bit. Hold on. Stray hair from my beard was tickling my nose. Just reminded me, apparently, I didn't trim that hair. Sucks. All right. Fire statement from Lindsay Rank, Fire Director of Campus Rights Advocacy. Texas A&M now believes Plato doesn't belong in an introductory philosophy course. And it is an introductory philosophy course. It's just introducing contemporary moral issues. The philosophy department is demanding that Professor Martin Peterson remove Platonic readings because they may touch on race or gender ideology. He's been given until the end of the day to comply or be reassigned. This is what happens when the Board of Regents gives university bureaucrats veto power over academic content. The board didn't just invite censorship, they unleashed it with immediate and predictable consequences. You don't protect students by banning 2,400-year-old philosophy. This is why I say that universities are not this bastion of progressive, left-leaning, ideology, because the Board of Regents and the administration and the bureaucracy of the two has always been on one side, and faculty and the student body typically is on the other. There has always been a massive tension between what the science, the academics, the learned, the people who study and do this shit for a living, either actively doing it or they are actively teaching it and perpetuating this knowledge chain. There's always been a tension between those and the administration side. And the administration side has always leaned towards big business, big government, and I'm not even big government, but lean towards things that are business orientated, government censorship orientated, appeasement to whatever is the lowest common denominator of political discourse, and specifically, they tend to lean more kind of conservative, just as a general. They're very scared of their funding not being 100% perfect, and because they are profit-orientated oftentimes, they are very, very terrified of anything that threatens profitability. So they like new things when it can be used for profit, but if there's a slight threat to that, again, they cut it. So, massive difference there. We could debate that if you want, chat, but that's a massive difference. This is what happens when the Board of Regents, that just continues that, KBTX reached out to Texas A&M for comment. We've not heard back at the time of this publishing, and this was published January 7th, yesterday. Another article from them. This is from, again, the 19th of last year. This is them adopting these policies, and now we're seeing them come into effect. Is that, again, because of how skittish and spineless and generally anti-controversy, or not even controversies, just risk-averse these people are. Again, this, according to text, no system academic course will advocate race or gender ideology or topics related to sexual orientation or gender identity. Let's look at this statement here. Will not advocate race or gender ideology. What the fuck does it mean to advocate for race or gender ideology? Is me just talking about the fact that some people have race ideology? That is, in many ways, advocating for race and gender ideology, because I'm advocating that it is a thing that exists and is currently being discussed. I'm not saying pro or whatever. That's like, this is so worded in such a vague and absolute manner, in a way, that any discussion on this is verboten. You cannot discuss racism or sexism or gender anything at all without running afoul of this. Of course, those who are discussing in a more conservative manner, they're not going to get the broad end of the stick because they're not going to get complaints thrown to them. It's only going to be the progressives who bring up the progressive aspect. Again, this is just censorship. Or topics related to sexual orientation or gender. I can't even bring up topics of it. Absolute censorship. Those exempted course materials must first be reviewed, show that they serve necessary educational purpose. What the fuck does that mean? Oh, it has to be necessary for what? What is necessary to what's the educational purpose? Like, one, it's also going to be revised by or reviewed, I should say, by people who don't teach and who don't teach the subject, who don't understand any of this. And two, must serve a necessary educational purpose. There are many ways to teach a topic that you wouldn't necessarily say are necessary to the topic, but can be quite illuminating to the topic. Again, this just puts this such vague, we get to arbitrarily decide. And they will always decide no if there's even a hint of scariness. Yeah, as he said right here, my students are adults and need to learn to structure their arguments for and against. They're going to need to be able to argue against this, which means that they need to be able to engage with these ideas, which means that they're going to need to engage with the enemy's ideas, which means that they're going to need to have a fair and balanced representation of the enemy's ideas, which means that they're going to have to also probably practice degrees of empathy and critical reading to where they are able to understand and empathize and or put themselves in the shoes of the opposition so that they can better understand the perspective and better address it. You can't do that if you ban all discussion. New York Times put out an article. Basically the same kind of thing. Martin Peterson, a philosophy professor at Texas A&M University, was thunderstruck when he was told on Tuesday that he needed to excise some teachings of Plato from his syllabus. Again, I cannot emphasize how stupid this is. A philosophy professor is having to excise and remove Plato's teachings from his philosophy, his intro philosophy course. It was one way his department head wrote in an email that Dr. Peterson's philosophy course could comply with new policies limiting the discussion of race. I was looking for the emails. There are emails. Hopefully, I think somebody has them here where they wrote this. Where were they? I thought they were in one of these articles. They were here. This one. Let's go with this one first, because this one has some of the emails sent. So, here's the email that he received from his dean. And I'm going to go ahead and I reserve judgment on the dean. Because we don't actually... Oftentimes, the dean... They're a teacher, all that kind of stuff. But oftentimes they are beholden to the administration and the board of directors and the kind of the regents. They are simply the manager of their department. They are powerful in many ways, but their power is limited. Maybe she doesn't have a spine. Maybe she agrees with this. Maybe there wasn't any way in which she could legally and effectively fight this at this particular time and simply had to send it off. So she's having to be the reluctant head man. Hard to tell, but let's go on. The email Peterson received. Greetings, Dr. Peterson. Thank you for your email. The college leadership team and I have discussed your syllabus and the provost office requirements for compliance with the new system rule 08.01. You have two options going forward. You may mitigate your course content to remove the modules on race and ideology and gender ideology and the Plato readings that may include these. 2. You may be reassigned to Philosophy 482, 501 through 514. Lecture times for this course are Tuesday, Thursday, 8 to 9:15. That sounds like a more standard 2-day course. It's an hour and 15 minutes. Please let us know by the end of business tomorrow how you'd like to proceed. Now, this is fucked, by the way, how fast this is happening and how little time you have. This is honestly, even if you are being used to swing this axe as the dean, this would be a vote of no confidence. Your whole department rebels and says, "Get the fuck out." Sorry, you swung this axe. You got to get the fuck out of here. Sorry, I got no trust in you. One second. All right, sorry, I had to quickly deal with something that interrupted me mid sentence. All right. Anyway, so again, this is right here. Like, I understand that it's a sucky position to be in, but part of the reason why one of the responsibilities you have as a dean is to stand up for your department. You are its primary advocate when it comes to the upper level divisions of whatever the college, because you're the one who's being invited and being pulled into these, again, the provost's office. You're being pulled into college leadership teams. This is where you are. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So, do it. So, Rule 0801 refers to recent policy changes at a university. Christie is the Department of Philosophy's chair, Christy Sweet, who, I think it's safe to assume, was merely passing along the verdict of the college leadership team, headed up by interim dean Simon North. I do believe these leadership teams and the interim dean of these kind of things, they're the ones who ends up pushing this. They're the administrative side. They are usually the worst fucking people you could ever imagine. I'm sure they're nice enough in a sense of just interpersonal stuff, but when it comes to like their actual how they view this world, they're basically like the 80s businessman stereotype, but more bullshit, less money, and generally just kind of terrible. So, and again, as this person says, I'm going to pause here just to review. An institution that purports to be a university has told a philosophy professor he is forbidden from teaching Plato because Plato talked about these topics. So we can talk about only certain things that Plato talked about, but not all of them, because we have regressed into children and stupidity. Plato readings for Symposium, particularly passages on Aristophanes' Myth of Split Humans and Diotima's Ladder of Love. The other readings are from Ethics, Theory of Contemporary Issues by Andrew Fiala and Barbara McKinnon. Professor Peterson has been contacted by his chair on December 19th about the review of syllabi for the Contemporary Moral Problems course. Here's that email. So, coming from Christy again, Christy Sweet. Greetings, Martin. I'm writing to you in advance of my general email to the faculty as you are teaching a core curriculum course this semester, which may be affected by the Board of Regents' recent vote. Again, Board of Regents they're almost always conservative, old sons of bitches, right-wing fucking nut jobs. I've never liked the Board of Regents of any university I've ever taught at or been at, or college. They're almost all bastard-coded bastards. Regrettably. I'm writing individual faculty members who have communicated with me and intend to include potentially relevant materials in a course in order to communicate the system policy to them. The language that was passed by the BOR is now posted, Board of Regents. The relevant language is the following. No system academic course will advocate race or gender ideology or topics related to sexual orientation or gender identity. upon prior written approval of the member CEO, after review of the course and relevant course materials, specific non-core curriculum or graduate courses in some disciplines may teach race or gender ideology. So only if we specifically approve this in non-core curriculum. If it has to be in the core curriculum, it can't be taught. Despite the fact that, again, honestly, every single degree of somebody who's getting this, like you get a philosophy degree or whatever from Texas A&M, I'm just going to assume, okay, well, you don't have a bachelor's or a master's in this program. You don't have one. Because you ignored, due to, again, active censorship, your teachers were forced to ignore and not teach you about specific core concepts and how to deal with them or various approaches to them. You are deficient. You are literally at 95%, 90%, 85%. You are just not complete. It'd be like me if you were a fucking mathematics instructor or something like that, and I want to hire somebody with a mathematics degree because I need them for some science thing or whatever, and you're getting from Texas A&M, but then you're like, oh, well, they don't actually teach or talk about or engage with anything relating to quantum mechanics, string theory, or any kind of astronomical fucking mathematics. They don't teach anything about those topics or anything related to those things, and they don't teach the math that those things use. Or here's a big one: they don't teach about relativity in like physics and higher level mathematical courses. They don't teach about relativity. Well, I'm not going to hire that person because, man, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, especially if I'm in some kind of astroengineering, fucking, yeah, it's just, that's nonsensical. I don't know how to deal with you. So this is fairly fraudulent. Put simply, this means the Board of Regents has clarified that the core curriculum courses, which include Philosophy 111, Contemporary Moral Issues, cannot include issues related to race, ideology, gender ideology, or topics related to sexual orientation or gender identity. Any non-core courses that include such materials will require an exemption, and all indications are that these will be under limited circumstances, namely when the content is necessary for the integrity of the course. I wanted to make you aware of this as soon as I had had some formal direction from the college, who has been consulted with the university administration. I'm still hopeful that faculty, initially part of the priority review deadline of December 22nd, will be able to get me their syllabus, but I understand if you request extra time. If you have any questions about this policy clarification, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'll do my best to answer, though the situation is rather fluid. Again, I do have sympathies for, again, Christy Sweet here, because she is absolutely getting railroaded and having to be the bearer of bad news, the messenger for the Board of Regents and the specific college of whatever they fucking call it. They're all goddamn same. College leadership team, basically, and the administrative side of this fucking boondoggle. So, Peterson replied to this, submitting his syllabus for what he referred to correctly as mandatory censorship review. Yeah, because it literally is a censorship review. Now, this is, maybe you could say, this is a little hyperbole, because in many times there have been, you do submit your syllabuses for review for the college. This is usually not to ensure you don't, this is usually done just to ensure that there is not something completely fucking off the wall. Like the teachers had a mental goddamn breakdown, has nothing in their syllabus, or is just gone completely fucking nut job, and all they're having them read or work with is like the most extreme fucking anti-science bullshit. It's like it has to hit basic standards, but those standards are incredibly broad. And again, topics like this in a contemporary moral issues, but you can't talk about race or gender ideology. Hell, even most conservatives, I feel like, well, yeah, like if for a class that specifically talk about contemporary moral issues, even though I would talk about it and teach about it, like transgenders are evil, trying to take over the world, it's a contemporary moral issue. Ergo, I would have to talk about it and have readings that deal with it. How would I talk about contemporary moral issues? That'd be like talking about contemporary moral issues, but you can't talk about, climate change, AI usage, fucking politics, violence, and you can't talk about anything. You can only talk about whether or not God does and doesn't exist. But no, actually, no, the Board of Regents just ruled you can't do that because that would be anti-Christian. I don't fucking know. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Crazy bullshit. Insane levels of fucking nut job bullshit. Peterson replied to this, submitting his syllabus for a mandatory, censorship review. Among other things, he says, please note that my course does not advocate any ideology. I teach students how to structure and evaluate arguments commonly raised in discussion of contemporary moral issues. Again, you have to be able to evaluate and be able to structure and discuss and understand in a relatively neutral kind of way. Before you start making an argument of your own point, you need to be able to structure and evaluate the arguments that have been made, even if you disagree with them. I absolutely have, in various points of my career, had to evaluate and structure and generally kind of put myself in the shoes of people, philosophies and argumentative perspectives that are antithetical to my own. The pro-slavery ones, why and how, what is their argument, what's the logic of this, let's break it down, how do we do this, what would their argument be, blah blah blah. Okay, moving forward, blah blah blah, just going over and over again this kind of thing. There's no way in which I can do that if these topics are just banned. And more importantly, me doing this is not, as he says, it's not advocacy. Acknowledging that some people believe X is not advocacy. It's simply acknowledging that some people believe this. Especially in a survey course, for fuck's sake. He also reminded his chair and the college officials that the U.S. Constitution protects my course content, as do the norms of academic freedom. Here's his reply. Nice long one. Oh, we know somebody's angry. I hereby submit my spring 2026 syllabus for Philosophy 111, Contemporary Moral Issues, for mandatory censorship review. The syllabus has not changed much since I last taught the course. I have made some minor adjustments to the module on race and gender ideology and the lecture on sexual morality. These topics are commonly covered in this type of course nationwide, and the materials is discussed in depth in the assigned textbook, Fiala and McKinnon, 10th edition. I also ask my students to read a few passages from Plato, Aristophanes' A Myth of the Split Humans, and Diotima's Ladder of Love. Please note that my course does not advocate any ideology. I teach students how to structure and evaluate arguments commonly raised in discussion of contemporary moral issues. If you interpret System Rule 0801, subsection 2.1b, as prohibiting these topics, I would like to remind you that U.S. Constitution protects my course content. Texas A&M is a public institution bound by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has noted that academic freedom is a special concern of the First Amendment, which does not tolerate laws that cast a pall of orthodoxy over the classroom. Keishan versus Board of Regents, 385 U.S. 589, 603, 1967. Another relevant precedent is Sweezy versus New Hampshire. Here is Chief Justice Earl Warren for the majority in 1957. The essentiality of freedom in the community of American universities is almost self-evident.
No one should underestimate the vital role in a democracy that is played by those who guide and train our youth. To impose any straitjacket upon the intellectual leaders in our colleges and universities would imperil the future of our nation. Sorry, I'm trying to wet my mouth here while speaking. No field of education is so thoroughly comprehended by man that new discoveries cannot yet be made. Hence why it is always permissible, not restrictive, because you cannot know any field so thoroughly that new discoveries cannot yet be made. Particularly is that true in the social sciences, where few, if any, principles are accepted as absolute. Scholarship cannot flourish in an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust. Teachers and students must always remain free to inquire, to study, and to evaluate to gain new maturity and understanding. Otherwise, our civilization will stagnate and die. Peterson continues here. Restrictions on teaching based on viewpoint discrimination are unconstitutional under nearly all circumstances. If faculty are required to seek prior administrative approval for classroom content, that raises serious concerns about prior restraint. Courts have repeatedly distinguished between holding faculty accountable after the fact for alleged misconduct and imposing advanced censorship of course content. Moreover, restrictions that single out specific perspectives as more problematic than others have repeatedly been found unconstitutional. Again, I'll repeat one of those points there. Courts have repeatedly distinguished between holding faculty accountable after the fact and imposing advanced censorship of course content. Again, you can hold faculty accountable after the fact of alleged misconduct, certainly, and say that after the effect, this was not allowed and this was not appropriate to some degree, but you cannot impose advanced censorship of course content. You cannot, prior to the fact and prior to the alleged misconduct, basically, you can censor after, but you cannot censor before. So, relevant constitutional things: Rosenberg v. Rector and Visitors of the University of Virginia, and Healy versus James. In Garcetti v. Cabellos, 2006, the Supreme Court discusses limits on public employee speech. However, the court explicitly set aside the question of whether its analysis applies to speech related to scholarship or teaching. So again, even in the ruling of Garcetti and Cabellos, which was most likely due to speech that was of a public employee outside of the specific role of scholarship or teaching. I also know that Texas A&M is a signatory to the 1940 Statement of Principles on Academic Freedom and Tenure, which affirms that faculty are entitled to, quote, freedom in the classroom in discussing their subject, and that limitations of academic freedom because of religious or other aims of the institution should be clearly stated in writing at the time of appointment. So yes, if you wanted to limit the teachings and academic freedoms because of religious or other aims of that particular institution, the institution wants to impose this, you have to have it in writing before appointment, so that the professor then can choose not to. Even then, that is still somewhat not great, but as a policy rather than constitutionally protected idea, but rather just simply a policy choice, you can do that. A Catholic church or a Catholic university can teach things from a Catholic perspective, but it has to have in writing specifically that we are doing this. We are teaching from a Catholic perspective. if you hire me and then after the fact say, okay, well, now you need to teach from a Catholic perspective and you need to be a Catholic, but you hired me before and I signed a contract with you and according to your institutional things, you're going to have a fucking problem. That you're going to have an issue with this. Even if you were to conclude that my syllabus conflicts with System Rule 08.01, constitutional protections for free speech and academic freedom would control. As a public institution, Texas A&M should not enforce policies that raise serious constitutional concerns. When a system rule appears to conflict with the First Amendment, administrators should, in my opinion, proceed with caution and seek legal guidance rather than mechanically apply the rule. Yeah, you guys are just trying to force this through because you were bitch made by Trump and his fucking death cult bullshit assholes who hate science and hate education. But again, this is anti-constitutional. I have CC'd interim Dean North, as the question raised in this message may warrant evaluation at the college or system level before a final determination is made. Here's also the syllabus. We already took a look at that. We already saw all of that. Good. Nothing too important there. It was clear that Texas A&M's new policies were going to lead to conflicts with the First Amendment and academic freedom. That first such conflict involves telling a professor to remove from his syllabus the writings of the person who created what was arguably the West's first institution of higher education is too perfect of irony. Yeah, it's literally you're banning Plato. Here's an update. Both Texas A&M chapter of the American Association of University Professors, AAUP, and the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, have issued statements about the Texas A&M's decisions regarding Dr. Peterson's syllabus. The AAUP says the AAUP Texas A&M College Station chapter condemns the Texas A&M University's reported decision to censor the teachings of Plato by restricting a professor from covering foundational philosophical texts within his expertise in an undergraduate core course because it addresses race and gender theories. At a public university, this action raises serious legal concerns, including viewpoint discrimination and violation of constitutional protected academic freedom. Yep. Absolutely. Beyond the legal implications, the moral stakes are profound. Silencing 2,500-year-old ideas from one of the world's most influential thinkers betrays the mission of higher education and denies students the opportunity to engage critically with the foundation of Western thought. How the hell am I supposed to teach Western philosophy if we were starting to ban things that Plato, for fuck's sake, Plato wrote and said? Ridiculous. A research university that censors Plato abandons its obligation to truth, inquiry, and the public trust, and should not be regarded as a serious institution of higher learning. We are deeply saddened to witness the decline of Texas's greatest universities. FIRE, from Lindsay Rank. Texas A&M now believes Plato doesn't belong in an introductory philosophy course. The philosophy department is demanding that Professor Martin Peterson remove Platonic readings because they may touch on race and gender ideology. He's been given until the end of day to comply or be reassigned. This is what happens when the Board of Regents gives university bureaucracy veto power over academic content. We read those things. Then, New York Times reports. Dr. Sweet said on Wednesday that she had no comment on the exchange with Dr. Peterson. Interview, Dr. Peterson said he would reluctantly alter the course and replace the disputed models with lectures on free speech and academic freedom. Yeah, fuck you. That's the academic way of saying go fuck yourself. Or, you may force me to do this, but now I'm going to be way... This is how you actually create more... extreme forms of academic resistance, by the way. For all you conservatives out there, this is how you actually create activist educators. You give them something that they have to be an activist for. Yeah, but he was angry, he said, as well as bothered by the sense that students would receive a less rigorous, challenging education in his classroom. Yeah, it's not covering major topics. It's just not. Dr. Peters shared some more emails. First sent yesterday is his reply to the email from Dr. Sweet. We're reproducing at the top of this post, CC members of the college leadership. Dr. Sweet, your decision to bar a philosophy professor from teaching Plato is unprecedented. Colleagues and journalists around the world have already contacted me for comment. You are making Texas A&M famous, but not for the right reasons. Yeah, sorry, Dean, whether you agreed with this or not, your spinelessness in this matter is going to get you, you're going to probably step down. After consulting with legal counsel regarding your ultimatum, I have chosen option 1. I will revise my syllabus and replace the censored materials with lectures on free speech and academic freedom. I will share my revised syllabus tomorrow, but this is not going to be the end. 100%. Dr. Sweet replied, thank you, Dr. Peterson. I will look forward to receiving your revised syllabus as part of the syllabus certification process. Today, Dr. Peterson responded by stating that he would place the censored readings with the article about university censorship published yesterday afternoon in the New York Times. Yeah, well, that's one way in which you can talk about the topics without talking about the topics in many ways, is talking about the fact that you can talk about these topics. That's clever. That's lovely. So you might not be able to read this. Dr. Sweet, as you may have noticed, I believe it is important to document the philosophy professors at Texas A&M University are not permitted to teach Plato at their own discretion. This sounds like a contemporary moral issue. To comply with the new censorship requirements, I have replaced the affected module with lectures on free speech and academic freedom. The censored material is marked in red in the attached document. The required text for the new module is Texas A&M, under new curriculum limits, warns professors not to teach Plato. New York Times, January 8th, 2026. Which I do believe is this guy right here. Yeah. Yeah, it was updated January. So we've read through some of this. We haven't read through all of it yet, but yeah, there it is. We don't need that guy. So pretty solid. So from there, let's look at this. So here we are, New York Times. Some professors are reconsidering syllabuses at the direction of administration or unaware whether they will be able to lead certain classes. Yeah, some professors generally, it's like, I don't know how to teach the course. Honestly, if I'm having to cut out massive sections, like just based on this vague threat, how do I teach this course? A philosophy professor who's not allowed to teach Plato, Dr. Peterson said in an interview on Wednesday. What kind of university is that? Is that really what you want? How, he added, can we possibly teach philosophy without being allowed to discuss Plato, even if some of Plato's ideas are a little bit controversial? How? Texas A&M, which is in College Station, said in a statement on Wednesday that the university would teach numerous dialogues by Plato in a variety of courses this semester and will continue to do so. Yeah, so they're like this, well, technically we didn't cut out all of Plato. Technically we have Plato and other courses. You're like, yeah, but see, that's almost worse. Because then you know, like, okay, well, I'm not actually going after Plato. I'm going after these specific ideologies. It's like, yeah, but then that is viewpoint ideology discrimination. You cannot teach, like, you can't talk about these things. Why not? These are teachable things. Other approved sections of the same course, the university has said, included works by Plato, but not include modules on race and gender ideology. Yeah, but here's the problem. You're right. Technically, you could do that. You could have a course that can look at lots of contemporary moral issues and might not include all of the ones that Peterson included, might include some of the ones that he did, and might include ones that he didn't include. The problem is that you decided that a couple of contemporary moral issues are off the fucking books. Based upon nothing but, again, just fear-mongering and bullshit from a corrupt, fascist fucking institution and fucking government, honestly. This is terrible. Again, you have no, and you did it based upon the broadest, dumbest kind of way possible. Like, there's just, again, this is one of the things where we didn't ban all of Plato. Yeah, but the problem is that you still did ban major sections of this. And more importantly, it would almost be better if you banned Plato, because then we could use Aristotle, we could use Socrates, we could talk about all the topics, we just can't talk about it from this particular point of view, this person's point of view, which is, well, for Plato would be disastrous because Plato is so central to a lot of Western philosophy, but it's almost worse you're doing it based on topic rather than individual, because there's lots of people who talked about, because it'd be like, I want to ban teaching Adolf Hitler's perspective on race and Jewish kind of identities and ethnicities within Europe. Okay, you still have tens of thousands of other people, politicians, philosophers, social studies, scientists, social scientists. You have tons of stuff that can still engage and talk about these from various perspectives. And even some that might even include or otherwise discuss from the perspective of like an Adolf Hitler figure, these kind of things. So you could still teach racist kind of words and phrases and racist perspectives, and to understand it and, again, delineate them and to understand their argumentative structure, their logic structure. You could still do that. It'd almost be better if you did ban it, because banning topics is way more fucking worse and kind of just spider web disastrous than banning one person. Those both are terrible, honestly. Both are terrible, but honestly, I think it might genuinely be worse to ban a topic than it is to ban a person. Because you could still talk about the topic from many perspectives, and you might be able to find a substitute for the person you banned, but you can't find a substitute necessarily for the topic. The topic is the topic. You just are replacing the topic in a substitutional manner, but not in a way that is instructive. You're basically just, it's like if I couldn't write the letter A in Times New Roman, but I can write in Times New Roman all the other letters except A. But here's the thing. If I just ban A, then I can use Arial. I can use other things to substitute in and still get A. I can't use other things to substitute in and get race and gender ideology discussions. Because I might, again, somebody else might have included works by Plato that discuss something else like state or something else. I don't know. I think he had that in his own syllabus, but let's just pretend. But those are two different fucking topics. They're both valid to discuss, and yes, a survey course can't survey everything, but it's going to survey a good portion of it. And for this particular teacher, he chose one part to survey. Others chose other parts. You can't cover everything. In recent months, bowing to conservative critics in the state capitol, university systems regents have eagerly endorsed new limits on academic instruction. Yes, they have. Absolutely. The conservatives in the state capitol and in the board of regents have happily, gleefully gone after taking a fucking hatchet to academic instruction. Under policies approved last year, courses may not, quote, advocate race or gender ideologies or topics related to sexual orientation or gender identity. In select instances, they can be necessary educational purpose. Some graduate and non-core undergraduate courses may teach those topics, again, under review. Universities across the country routinely say that classes cannot be used for political purposes, but the push by A&M regents reflects a noisy debate in Texas, the nation's most populous conservative state, for its public universities. Republican elected officials, often echoing Trump's administration's grievances about American higher education, have argued that universities were too often veering away from academic instruction into liberal proselytizing around, for example, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, based on nothing, based on just talking about the topics. That's it. Again, it's Republicans who want more control, created a fucking boogeyman of liberal proselytizing, and is now using that as a cudgel. Their own paranoid fantasies. Brian Harrison, a Republican state representative and Texas A&M alumnus who has championed the pressure campaign in Austin, said it was misleading and false for professors to suggest that Plato had been banned. It's not false. You could maybe say it's misleading, but even then it's not. You banned parts of Plato because of a topic ban. Absolutely. Now it is literally censorship. I literally have to censor Plato. I have to look at all of Plato's writings again. And anytime he's going to talk about something, even in passing, that might relate to this, I immediately, even if he's talking about the state, but he says something in a way that otherwise I'm now paranoid. Okay, he's talking about the state, the role of the state and authority of the state. But he uses a euphemism or some kind of figure of speech that indicates or otherwise, if you're in the know, would indicate Plato's understanding about love or about gender roles. Do I have to cut that? Because it could lead a student to the forbidden topic. Can't do that now. But he said, what we're seeing here is just further evidence that inmates have been running the asylum in Texas public universities for far too long. Again, they're crazies. Inmates running the asylums. Well, what is the asylum? It's such a stupid kind of thing. The asylum is meant to hold and keep the inmates. How the fuck does that relate to goddamn... I understand he's using them for a euphemism, but it's a shitty fucking analogy euphemism here. A shitty fucking... It's terrible. And again, this just reflects, you guys have always hated universities as asylums. You've always hated education. It's always been a place to contain all the bad, evil, ugly things and ideas that you don't like. And again, the professors are now running the schools? God forbid that. Since November 2024, Texas A&M has shut down its minor in LGBTQ studies and seen its then president job threatened by the governor over a DEI conference. Last September, a lecturer was fired after a contentious lesson in children's literature class. We read about that one. University presidents stepped down afterwards, and now professors in an array of academic disciplines are trying to decipher what they will be allowed to teach when classes resume next week. It was not clear how many professors, courses, or students could be affected. Classes at large universities like Texas A&M often enroll dozens or hundreds of students. Yeah. The course Peterson was planning to teach, Philosophy 111, or Contemporary Moral Issues, would examine representative ethical positions and their application to contemporary social problems, according to the university's academic catalog. Yeah, this is all pretty standard. Dr. Peterson's original syllabus called for modules focusing on debates around abortion, capital punishment, economic justice, race and gender ideology, among other topics. Again, are we going to have to cut abortion next? Economic justice? That sounds like communism. We're going to have to cut that out? And these are all worthy. Yes, he could have had environmental concerns, which I think he actually does, and no race and gender ideology, and it would still be a good course. You're correct. But again, having this in there is perfectly acceptable and is also a good course. You're cutting out some good courses and leaving other good courses for no reason other than a incredibly politically and ideologically derived sentiment. It is literally sentiment. It is or censorship. It is literally viewpoint censorship. When Dr. Peterson, who has been at Texas A&M since 2014, submitted his syllabus for review last month, he told his department head that his course does not advocate any ideology. Instead, he wrote in an email that he shared with the New York Times, I teach students how to structure and evaluate arguments commonly raised in discussions on contemporary moral issues. On Tuesday, Dr. Peterson got a response from Christy Sweet, philosophy department. Sweet gave the professor two choices. Could mitigate his course's content to remove the modules on race ideology and gender ideology and the Platon readings, or you'd be assigned to an ethics and engineering course. Standard stuff, planned readings, we've read that. Many conservatives pressed for universities to devote more attention to classical education and the foundations of Western thought. Again, irony. Yeah, stop teaching all this crazy new age, postmodern bullshit. Okay, well, all right. The reason why your arguments, I'm sorry, this is why it's always stupid what they're arguing, is that these aren't necessarily new concepts or new arguments. These things were being discussed even back during Plato's time in different manner, in different way, in different conclusions, but you didn't solve anything. No comment. He's angry, bothered by the sense of students, I'm aware that many members of the Board of Regents probably disagree with Plato, Dr. Peterson said. They may not be aware of that because they haven't read Plato. Who knows? But it's still a valuable alternative perspective. Dr. Peterson, who chairs the university's Academic Freedom Council, said, we cannot have just one perspective in the classroom. When there's nothing to discuss, then there's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to learn. It's indoctrination. It's Soviet-style education. It's party politics. Which is, again, the conservative, right-leaning Republicans, MAGAs, they never had a problem with communism. They never had a problem with the Red Scare. What scared them about the Red Scare is that they, one, saw their reflection in it, and two, they recognized that this was the left, if you will, doing what they wanted to do. And again, they want to win. They know that if they're going up against somebody who is liberal and open to all perspectives, and then they are the ones who are only open to one perspective, they'll win that fight because the liberal will open the doors, they'll stream through, and slowly but surely whittle away at the liberal, because the liberal can't get rid of this one perspective because they value all perspectives. However, with a more strict, ideologically pure leftist side, like communism and the Soviet kind of style education party first, it's going to be an open conflict. The left and the right will not intermingle. The right cannot get in there. So it's an actual fight. Again, that's where it is. Two other faculty members at Texas A&M who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they feared retaliation said they had no plans to change their syllabuses and that they are not sure whether they would be permitted to teach. In one email sent to This Week, A&M officials wrote that they were canceling a sociology course because they had, quote, concluded that we cannot teach this course in its present form and comply with system policies. They literally are having to cancel courses because this is so restrictive and so stupid that there's a sociology course that's like, yes, this is a sociological course. It's been taught for years. It is clear that it has educational merit and necessity for studying specific fields, but because of this stupid policy, this incredibly censorial policy, we literally can't it's shot to hell and back again. We cannot teach this course at all in any form. The topic's dead. Congratulations. Again, it's getting to the point where like, well, can I teach about relativity? I don't know. That sounds like viewpoint and sounds like it could be kind of weirdly like postmodernist, like, from one perspective, time moves at this rate, but from another, that doesn't sound like universal. That sounds like something that could be something like a standpoint theory. I don't know. I don't know if we could do that anymore. Can't teach relativity. Sorry, folks. Sorry, Einstein. Can't do it. The system policies took shape last year at a November meeting. Sam Torm, the regent who chairs the Committee on Academic Student Affairs, all these people, by the way, I feel like if we have that surge of liberalism that we're all hoping that'll happen, taking the House, the Senate, and the presidency, there needs to be some serious fucking retaliation, like across the board, like straight up. You investigating and removing from positions. I hope it is absolutely chaos and you have people like Sam Torm and all the rest get absolutely skull fucked. I hope they get thrown out on their ass. It won't happen, but it would be really nice if it did. argue that it had become clear that some Texas A&M courses had strayed from the curriculum that system leaders imagined. Yeah, because as the Supreme Court literally said, you can't just imagine where it's going to go, and you can't just imagine, well, this is where it's going to be and where it's always going to be. No, that's not how education works. With new ideas, new revelations, new information coming in, you have to be able to address those things. You have to bring them up, discuss them, analyzing them. Part of the reason why we learn about bad ideas and how we know bad idea is a bad idea is by at first studying it as a potentially good idea and testing and examining it for fucking months and years sometimes. And then we throw it away. And then we don't even do that. We keep it around so we can teach past or future students, hey, you have this idea. Well, you know what? This idea was actually already created. This idea was already brought forth. You thought you had something new? No. This actually has been run the course. So you can read up about it here, and you can eventually read up about how it was eventually proven to be not particularly useful. Then we move the fuck on. Although frustration has been bubbling for months, the debate over A&M classes exploded on September after a lecture teaching children's thing. We've read about that one. And again, a widely circulated video promoted by, again, Mr. Harrison and other Republicans in Texas. Yeah, fucking ideological bastards that they are. Yeah. Yeah. The university fired Dr. McCool. A faculty appeals panel ruled unanimously in November that A&M was not justified when it dismissed Dr. McCool, but a university system official refused last month to reinstate her. Dr. McCool's lawyers has signaled plans to bring a legal challenge. And it's funny how, again, rules panel rules unanimously one way, but again, this just shows, sadly, we've never been able to. Everything's always a gentleman's agreement, and this is the problem. We've always just kind of allowed things to be a gentleman's agreement, but when push comes to shove, these people could just say no, and there's no recourse. The faculty can't just decide, well, okay, you get removed. Sorry, we have the final say on this. You get removed. The power is never in the people who are doing things. The power is always in the administrative and the Board of Regents area, and everyone else is just in an advisory role. That needs to change. Honestly, faculty, if they rule well enough, or they panel is put together, they should have the power to be able to remove administrative fucking officials. Just outright. No. And no, the university and the administration should not have that role. Honestly, the power dynamic needs to shift 100% the opposite direction. It just simply does. On Wednesday, as word of disputes like Dr. Peterson spread, critics of Texas A&M policy said free speech classes became inevitable after the board's move. The College Station's campus's chapter of the American Association of University Professors' move against prejudice raises serious legal concerns. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely insane across the board. Again, MAGA hates education. MAGA hates everything about education because they prefer their people stupid. They prefer their people only having one idea, the approved party line. MAGA and the Conservative Party have always been the boogeyman of Soviet communist Russia party politics. They've always been this thing that they speak out against. They've always been it. Every accusation is a confession with them. But now we move on to the more controversial topic for today. The murder of a U.S. citizen by a officer. I don't know if we can actually...
On Wednesday in Minneapolis.
Stop. Can we make this bigger? If we do make it bigger, how's that looking? Hold on 1 second. We're gonna. That should work okay. So here's the shooting of the Minneapolis woman. This actually includes some information that I hadn't seen previously, but for the most part, if you don't know, a U.S. citizen and a woman, perfectly legal, not being chased by police or anything else like that, was shot in her car multiple times by an ICE agent after they got out of their car and tried to apprehend her, and she drove away or seemingly drove away. And the idea is that she tried to run the ICE officer over. We're going to be watching the video. Viewer discretion is advised. I don't think you see much, so we're pretty okay.
A federal agent fatally shot a motorist, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. Trump administration.
So we can start again.
On Wednesday, in Minneapolis, a federal agent fatally shot a motorist, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good.
So it's important to do this. We'll turn this off and we're going to try to pause.
On Wednesday.
So
federal agent.
I really wish this player didn't auto turn on the fucking thing here, but I want you to pay attention as we move forward here. I don't know. Yeah, it's an embedded player for the New York Times. It's a terrible player. But
motorist.
One thing to note is that he pulled out his gun as she was moving forward.
Shot.
So he's already pulled it out. She's barely moving forward. He is quite a ways in front of the car in a way, so he is under no immediate threat other than a car moving forward. Again, if this was a manual transmission, that car isn't even moving as violently as when you accidentally get in the wrong fucking gear and it kind of, you stall your car. Yeah. Doesn't even do that. It's barely moving forward, barely do anything at all. They've come out and told her she has to get out of the car, get arrested, and again, she does standard panic, what? Okay, well, I don't know what you mean. What fuck? She might also be trying to move her car. We don't know her intentions. She might even be genuinely trying to move her car to the side of the road. Because, again, the way it looked from my perspective is that she had been trying to pull out to some reason, stop the car, and for whatever reason, people are discussing, trying to talk, whatever. When the federal people come over here, you'll see this later in the video. We'll talk about it in a second. I'll leave that for now. But one weak thing is that there's no real reason at this point to draw your weapon. Even if the suspect is fleeing, you don't need to draw your weapon. There's no necessary need to draw your weapon. There is no threat of life at all. A car moving is not justification. Even a car moving towards you is not justification. Not at all. At no point is this justified. 2, moves forward. It's very clear moving away. He is way out of line. He's already pointing it directly at her windshield. You can see the gun right there. Low right. He's already pointing it at her. Already going with lethal force. He is well outside and away from this, and he is putting his hand on the front of the thing there. You can kind of tell just by body thing. Ignore the guy in the front, he's blocking, but by body posture. He's got his left hand on the hood. Again, shouldn't be doing that. You're putting your life unnecessarily at risk, even though, again, your life isn't at risk. You're putting at least bodily harm at risk for no reason. And he's pointing the gun very clearly. Gun pointed there, which again, your other officers in the line of fire, fucking discipline on this is fucking a pro. Moving forward. It's clear moving away, and she's moving her car out. This also is something that she had intended before. We'll see some more information on this. But he has a solid 2 seconds from when he draws his gun to make an assessment of the actual danger of this situation. And quite frankly, there is no reason to shoot. That's the first shot. He is well outside of where he is under threat. No officers are under threat. There's nothing happening that would warrant the shot. He then fires
37-year-old
multiple times through the side of the windshield.
Renee Nicole Good. Trump administration officials said these were, quote, defensive shots fired because the officer was being run over.
And a woman attacked them, and those.
Yeah, and Trump and the rest of them are saying that he is surprised that the officer is alive. It's shocking because of the attack was so violent. Kristi Noem here is about to say something really stupid.
Surrounding them and attempted to run them over.
Attempted to run them over. That's what attempting to run them over looks like, by the way.
But our analysis of bystander footage, filmed from different angles, appears to show the agent was not in the path of the victim's SUV when he fired 3 shots at close range. Here's how events unfolded. Moments before the shooting, the victim's maroon SUV is stopped in the middle of the street. Multiple unmarked federal vehicles are idling nearby. Secretary Noem alleged the motorist, quote, was blocking the officers in.
Now, at this point, you could maybe make this argument, but again, they're at rest. If she might be blocking traffic, you could maybe arrest her for that, potentially. But the idea of this is an aggressive act against them is rather paltry and pathetic. Again, she has parked her car there. You would have to assume a lot of intentions on this person that you simply cannot assume. Maybe she's parked there because she's looking back, trying to figure out what the fuck's all the noise about. And again, she's doing the standard rubbernecking. This isn't necessarily good, but this certainly is not aggressive, threatening towards officers or intentional in any way towards that direction.
Bystanders are blowing whistles and yelling at federal agents.
Go home to Texas!
Then, federal vehicles start moving toward the maroon SUV, with sirens and lights blaring.
Now, at this point, there are cars moving around her. Some of them might be some of them are civilian, some of them are not, like this one right here. I think that's a civilian car. She literally can't pull forward unless she hits this car.
A federal agent
And she's trying to. She is stopping. Federal agent
films the scene on his phone.
is filming the scene, moving around. Fine. All this. Again, this car right here, I think this is a federal car. Again, the fact that they just ride around in so many unmarked cars that aren't clear, it's again, really a problematic thing to do. But again, it's moving forward. She had already stopped and let one car through. Another car's coming. She might be letting that car through. Then it stops.
The driver rolls forward slightly, turning left.
Yeah,
Then
rolls forward after this one.
stops and waits for others to go ahead.
And it might be that she's trying to maybe
2
U-turn.
agents exit this silver pickup and
But now
walk
she's
toward the
stopped.
vehicle.
Now she's stopped. Get out of the
Moments
car.
later,
Again,
shots are
I'm sorry, get out of the car. That's not... Again, identify yourself. Federal officials here, you need to move your car. That's what you could just say. Again, has anyone told her to move her car yet? Verbally told them, you can put your lights or honk or whatever, but if you were parked and then you move forward and then you park again, are you moving forward? Is this part of the scene? Do I need to move? Do I not need to move? I'm waiting for you to tell me specifically what I'm supposed to be doing at this point. That seems not an illogical or terrible thing to go across, It's not terrible. And again, if somebody wants to debate me or tell me I'm wrong in my analysis, you can join. There's the link at the top. Pinned comment.
fired.
And then they shoot
Let's
and
look
kill her. So again, there is just even my omitted thing. A bit of information that I didn't see is one, the car that she did let forward just before the pickup truck stops right there. Again, she's letting traffic go around her. It looks like she might be trying to actually U-turn. It looks like she might have been parked here for whatever reasons, and now she pulled forward, stopped, looked at all the commotion that was behind her. Now cars are moving around. She's trying to U-turn. Because if you look, watching this,
Left.
she's
Then stops
creeping
and-
forward, This car is moving forward. She finally stops.
waits
Okay.
for others to go ahead.
She's waving for the car to move around her. A, I'm not blocking you. That shows I am not blocking. I'm not protesting anymore. I'm waving at you to go through. Hello, federal official. You guys are now finally starting to move forward. If she also wanted to turn and go this direction, to go screen left, this is what was behind her. That was that direction. So if I pull out and I stop and all of a sudden I'm looking left, see no traffic, but then I see all this fucking bullshit here, I'm gonna think, is that like an active crime scene?
Defensive
Should-
shots fired because the officer.
Actually,
aimed at
that's
analysis of
after
the
this.
shooting, The victim's maroon SUV is stopped in the middle of
That's what she's looking at. Look at this clusterfuck of shit back
the
there.
street. Multiple unmarked federal vehicles.
On various sides of the street, I can't see. I don't know if this is a one-way or not, by the
idling
way.
Nearby.
It could be a one-way.
Secretary film alleged the motorist, quote, was blocking the officers in.
It can't possibly be a one-way. Even though the markings are a little bit weird, it doesn't look like a one-way. So, if she wanted to go, again, this direction, well, let's watch. If I wanted to go this direction, opposite of way that white car was going, and I'm seeing as I pull out of my spot, and I see this giant cluster of federal vehicles and a bunch of other bullshit and cars moving down in the center of the fucking road. Like, where am I supposed to go? Is that an active thing? What's going on? What are these fucking crazy ICE people doing?
Blocking the officers in.
This guy's backing up all the way, like,
Bystanders
I guess maybe to make her room to back in. It's like, hey, if you want to back into here, you can back into here.
forward slightly, turning.
Then he decides he pulls forward. Maybe he was too close. He decides, oh, I'm just going to move forward, move around. I think this is a civilian car.
Left.
She's waving for him to go on through. Moves forward a little bit, but then stops at the end here.
And waves for others to go ahead.
Waves for specifically, this is the federal car that all these guys jumped out and ambushed her. Again. What the fuck?
The SUVs are pointing to the right, away from the agent. This appears to conflict with allegations that the SUV was ramming or about to ram the officer. President Trump and others said the federal agent was hit by the SUV, often pointing to actions that the SUV
So let's
was
look at
ramming
this
or
one.
about to ram the officer.
If we see
President
here,
Trump and others said the
this is the guy who
federal
shoots.
agent was
He's well away. He's got his hands on there. You've seen this. I've done the same move when a car is moving forward, all of a sudden unexpectedly.
hit by
I'm well outside of this. And the only reason this guy is at all getting hit is because instead of moving away from the vehicle, preserving both his life and also preventing any other loss of life or dangerous situation, instead he tries to put himself like on the side of it to stop it, and mostly because he wants to point the gun at her face. That is the only reason he is adopting this position, is because he's trying to get himself up for a more clear shot.
the SUV, often pointing to another video filmed from a different angle.
And again, he shoots her 3 times, once or twice in the head, something like that. And the only thing he might have gotten hit by slightly is, again, the driver's side mirror. But the only reason you're getting hit by this is because you are not following proper procedure and you are dead set on maintaining deadly force and the threat of deadly force for no real reason. You started with wanting to use deadly force despite the fact that there wasn't any clear indications for there need to be a deadly force. And then you continue doing the deadly force despite the fact that this was not going to help.
And it's true that at this moment in this grainy low-resolution footage, it does look like the agent is being struck by the SUV.
But again, that's not.
But when
It's
we see-
literally just forcing his arm back. He's not being struck. He's being struck by, in many ways, his own arm. Kind of like if I hold my arm out and I walk into a wall and I'm keeping my arm really stiff, not locked because you don't want to hurt your arm, but I keep it stiff. You know that little jolt that might happen to your body because you walk? That's literally it. He put his hand on a moving vehicle and then pressed against it, and he pushes him
Synchronizing with
back.
the first clip, we can see the agent is not being run over. In fact, his feet are positioned away from the SUV. The SUV crashes into a white car parked
Yeah, because he shot her in the head and she literally convulsed and her foot jammed onto the
down the road.
gas.
A bystander runs toward the collision. The federal agents on scene do not appear to rush to provide emergency medical care.
Yeah, they're just
Eventually,
hanging
the-
back. This is the other thing. It's like, I'm sorry, you just fired shots. You're not even pulling your guns to ensure that the suspect is down. You're not trying to keep the public away for their own safety. You just shoot, and then these guys just hang out like, oh, well, dude, shit, man. That just happened. This is why, again, I know they only get like 2 weeks of fucking training. Why ICE needs to be shut down is, even if you think what they're doing is right, even if you agree with their policies, their training and is so wasteful and so fucking stupid and so bad that, like, from the ground up, it needs reorganization. Because this is dog shit. This is dog shit by any law enforcement standard, by any security personnel standard. This is dog
Agent who
shit.
shot the motorist approaches the vehicle. Seconds later, he turns back around and tells his colleagues to call 911.
Shame! You shot someone! You shot someone!
Agents block
What do you
several
say? All the way back, all the way back. I don't know, just the whole posture, everything about this, they just seem so lost. Lackadaisical. They're just fucking dumbass rubes. 80 IQ motherfuckers who couldn't pass the police exam, couldn't get into security details, but took $100,000 signing bonus or whatever the fuck it is for ICE enforcement. I think it's like there's a massive signing bonus, and they get paid pretty decently for fucking 2 weeks of goddamn training. Then you're on there just beating up fucking unarmed people.
bystanders who attempt to provide medical care, including one who identifies himself as a physician.
I go check a pulse.
No! Back up! Now!
I'm a physician.
I don't care.
At the same time, several agents, including the agent who opened fire, get in their vehicles and drive off.
That right there, that man should be immediately put in prison for ever, and also his things. Because maybe I don't know, maybe I'm not sure what the policy is, but I feel like unless some senior official has been on there, already debriefed you or whatever, the fact that the guy who shot a officer of the law, federal officer of the law, shot a U.S. citizen and is now leaving the scene before being partially debriefed by whatever, the watch commander, people like that, because this is a civilian you've just shot in the fucking face, and you're leaving. You're just leaving the scene? What the fuck? That right there is immediate. This whole organization is dog shit.
Apparently altering the active crime scene.
Yeah, it alters the active crime scene. You got in a car, the cars are no longer in the position that they were. We now have a missing vehicle that was technically part of this. All those vehicles, all of them, whether they involved or not, should remain where they fucking were. So that everybody, when they get on scene, the investigator, the watch commander, whatever you would call it for the specific federal part here, when they arrive, they can look at the scene and go, this is where everyone was placed. They can interview actively the person who did the shooting, all the other agents, people who were witnesses. They can get an accurate kind of sense of this. No, he just leaves. And also, him leaving, he is part of the scene. He is now no longer just an officer who goes wherever. He is now part of an active of a shoot. This would be like them again. They took the gun. He has his gun in his holster, and his gun leaves. Again, imagine just a cop. Oh, there's a murder scene, and he just goes and he decides, well, that pizza's going to be getting cold that the victim was holding, so I'm just going to take that home to my family. Oh, yeah, do that. And he just grabs fucking evidence that the fucking victim had. Like, I'm sorry, no. All of it stays, for fuck's sake. This is, again, the reason I want to show this is because I think this adds a ton of context that people are missing and deliberately ignoring. And it fucking drives me up the goddamn wall. Absolutely drives me up the fucking wall. I didn't see this initially. I saw a couple of the videos, and it was pretty clear to me that it's not self-defense, that this is pretty fucking dog shit. But that right there, just the absolute clown fuck bullshit that just happened, deserves 100% firing. So that's my spiel. This is objectively awful. And again, I did not like the George Floyd riots. Um, I didn't like a lot of that. But honestly, sorry, I'm answering an email real quick here. Sorry, I'm answering this email. It's just taking a while. So, yeah, no, overall, this is all just bad, terrible, miserable. This is nearing Derek Chauvin and George Floyd territory of unnecessary force. Because I'm sorry, like, again, he's drawing his fucking weapon when she's backing up. not even moving forward. She's backing up, not against officers. There's no threat. Literally just pulling the weapon. Again, these people and officers all across the board, just, there should be a hell of a lot more training and punishment for, like, no, did you pull your weapon? Why? Even if they don't discharge it, like, I'm sorry, if a video release and like, okay, policy, like, did you draw your weapon in this instance? Yeah, well, I felt like no. There is no clear at all escalation or necessary steps taken before this. You don't draw your weapon until you go through at least 3 or 4 different stages of escalatory response. The fact that it literally goes from talking, then they just grabbing at the door, fucking wrenching, and then one of them just pulling out like, again, there is no escalation. They talk about how, oh, well, how could this officer make all these judgments calls within a second? How can the civilian be able to effectively realize the situation or what they're in? And, oh, well, okay, I'm doing the wrong moves. I'm being stupid because I panicked or whatever, or I thought I was doing the right thing. I'm doing the wrong thing. Again, how can the civilian make the correct response and understand, oh, no, well, no, now the time for me questioning or the time for me kind of like trying to explain myself is over. Now I have to submit myself to the law. How the fuck are they supposed to make that judgment in that when there's literally there's no escalatory nature to it? It's like, again, if you were to talk to somebody and you accidentally say something that offends them, and instead of saying in a more stern voice, like, well, hold on a second, I think that's a little offensive. I'm not particularly fond of that. And then if you kept saying it, then they could say, okay, look, man, I'm getting kind of angry. I got to tell you, like, if you keep saying this, I might have to pop you in the face. I might have to punch you in the nose. And then you keep doing it and you get more aggressive. They physically get aggressive towards you. Like, look, dude, last warning. You say it again, I'm going to pop you in the face. And you're getting physically, like, threatening. Then they say it again, then you pop them in the face. Again, you were like, oh, wait, yeah, look, the guy kept asking for it. The guy clearly could see this. We could do that. If you had something where you said something that you didn't know necessarily would be insulting to that individual, and then they just punched you right in the face. They went from just laughing, saying, hey, how you doing? And you say, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then they just fucking hauled back and punched you in the face. You'd be like, how the fuck was I supposed to reasonably respond to any of this? Yeah, no, this is bad. It's bad across the board. And there's not really much we could say about it. Like, it's just, it is sad that, again, he will get away with it, by the way. He will never be charged with anything, almost certainly. He should absolutely be charged. He should absolutely be charged with multiple things. ICE honestly needs to be defunded, shut down, and put under congressional review of whether or not it is a viable institution, because it is clear whatever standards, whatever they're doing, whatever they're pushing forward, is creating a straight up just clown show that is now resulting in the loss of civilian life. Yeah, there's just nothing you can say about this. It is absolutely unjustified. I absolutely, again, if you want to try to say, and you want to debate and say, hey, come on, I want to talk to you, I'm going to explain to you why it's justified, by all means, there's the link. It's at the top. Join the Discord. I think I might have accidentally closed the Discord. No. Okay, it's still up. I just had it in a different window. I had minimized it and it disappeared. But no. Again, I just saying, it is what it is. Not sure what else I can say. It is what we were talking about here. Like, again, this is a pretty explicitly wrong, explicitly, again, this is what happens when you get a bunch of young, dumb, poorly trained men who are becoming more stressed because the more poorly trained and terrible they are, the more things they violate, the more chaos they cause, the more people dislike them, then they start giving the officers some degree of genuine reason to be afraid of for their life and being stressed. Then that causes them to create more errors, more problems, which just creates this cycle of violence that leads to people being beaten, people being shot, and now a person being killed. Just across the board, it's dog shit. It's bad, it's dog shit, and yeah, it's hard to say, it's hard to really kind of wrap this up in any other way than, yeah, no, that was fucked. It's fucked. It is genuinely, it's a genuinely fucked kind of situation. Oh well. Again, there's nothing really to say about it. It's just simply tragic and sad. Um, I think most people's response to this seems to be that there just seems to be this general understanding that this is pretty fucking bad. Again, conservatives will come out and defend it. Yeah, there's just not much to be said about it. Yeah, bad times. Sucks to say, but it is bad times out there, ladies and gentlemen. Sad to say that this is the education we have for today is that, again, philosophy is now, where the attack on universities is getting so bad that we're at the point where we're going to be banning like straight up philosophical texts that have been taught for quite literally thousands of years. For well over 1,000 years at least. And again, then we have this. So we have citizens being murdered. We have the White House and JD Vance and all the rest of them actively lying and bullshitting and fucking trying to make this seem as extreme as possible to try to paint this poor woman, this poor fucking single mother, fucking husband dead, leaves behind a fucking kid. Now the kid's basically an orphan. His his dad died. I think I read some quick little story about her dad died tragically like a year or two ago or something like that, some time ago. And now we got this kid. Oh yeah, mom's dead now too. How'd she die? Oh yeah, she was fucking shot in the face by ICE agents. Yeah. Anyway, that's what we got. That's where we're at. America is again, you have to understand, like when you see ICE agents, you have to understand you gotta be careful because you are dealing with a semi-paramilitary organization that is not beholden to any basic legal laws at this point. Until this guy is put in prison for murder, you just assume like they can get away with all kinds of murder. Doesn't matter. You could literally just be standing there. ICE agent walks up to you and says, "Hey, dude, how you doing?" You say, "I'm doing fine." Pulls out a gun and he shoots you in your face. Trump, Vance, the whole institution will say you were clearly threatening them. They will defend it. You got to be careful out there, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be careful. Man. And again, the reason why I also think about this is that again, this scenario here where she is moving forward. Not even that, not even just this angle right there, but specifically this lead up here. This is the big lead up that is important to me. Is again, the car moving around. She's trying to move forward. She's waving them forward, waving that one forward, waving the other one forward. Like, are you stopping? Are you going? And then he stops. And they all get out. Yep. Just running around. This guy just filming them. Fat, stupid, lazy, not even paying attention. He's going to block off the road to prevent further access getting in front of the car, which is, again, dangerous for him, dangerous for everyone. He's right, actually kind of right over there. He then moves over there. He's out of the way. This is, again, it's very clear that this person is now panicking. You're now grabbing at the door. Again, why? You just walk up to the door and say, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am, I need you to step out of the car. I need you to step out of the car. Yes, ma'am, you're going to be under arrest. I'm afraid you're going to be under arrest. Come on now, just step out of the car." There's none of that. It's just get the fuck out of the car. Get the fuck out. I'm sorry. You do that, people don't no longer recognize the words on your vest. They're not paying attention to the fact that it says ICE and police. They're paying attention to you as an aggressive person approaching their vehicle, ripping at their door handle, trying to get at them. This is why you do escalation carefully. Again, there's just... And again, there's no like, oh, well, they did this for safety, again, or to prevent the car from going out of control. I've heard that argument. It's retarded. Literally shooting somebody while the car is under power and moving forward and shooting them in the head, you are rendering that car completely and utterly uncontrollable because now it's just going to go forward. Nobody can control this. This is, imagine, again, just throwing out a spike trap on a car that's moving at speed without considering where the car will go. They have to do that. That's why they don't just throw out spikes at the first instance. They will find an area where they can safely deploy the spikes because they know there's a likelihood that the car will lose control afterwards. And you might say, well, he can't possibly decide this in that split second. Then you do not fucking make those choices. Unless there is an absolute, you will die, or someone will die in the next half second, you do not make that choice. I don't know. Again, I would be perfectly supportive of massive nationwide protests at this point. Because ICE, especially, law enforcement in general, but ICE especially, is an egregious affront to basic American civil liberties and a basic understanding of the social contract that we sign, to where we give over and cede over violence to the state as a, they're the ones who will handle this in the appropriate manner, because we don't want just this tribalistic, dog eat dog kind of society. Again, the waving through, all of this clearly indicates, again, she's not fleeing. You were parked way back there. She's either trying to U-turn or move around, and she's like, well, this looks all blocked and fucked up. I don't know where the fuck to go now. There's a car just parked randomly right there. Got out. I'm not sure what's going on with that shit. Yeah, this is again, it's a bad shoot. It's a clear bad shoot. Yeah, and you can't defend yourself against this kind of stuff, by the way. Yeah. So that's what the New York Times has come to this conclusion. We heard them speak about it. Again, this is all pretty standard. You can see this over and over again, time and time again. Across the board, bad shoot. I hate to end on such a depressing note, but we're going to end it right there. I know it was a very short one, but kind of a short day. Maybe next time we might make this like maybe a Tuesday, Thursday, or something like that. We might have 2 days where we try to have live discussion, chat, debates, and discussing of current events. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Until next time, and as always, I hope you have a good one.